Hello learners, welcome to today's session. As a part of the program Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health, today we will be discussing about the relationship between corporate sector and environment, or you can say how business activities affect the environment, and also the changing environment and the climate change. How does it affect the working of the different businesses, the different corporate organizations which are there. So, let us begin our session. The title of the session is Corporate Sector and Environment. It is very much obvious that business operations are related to the society. Society is made up of we, the human beings, our demands. We create the perceptions of the market. The market is driven by our needs. So, in order to fulfill the needs of the people which are coming from different strata, which belong to different income groups, the business operations are thriving. So, the relationship between business activities and society is very much, you can say it is integral, because unless and until the society participates in the different operations, in the different activities which are being done, there is no business possible. So, customers, the consumers, they drive the business operations. So, in a way we can say that mutually, and it is well established fact, whatever has happened in the past, how the businesses have grown, the globalization is the result of the international trade which has begun between the countries, which has led to the economic growth in the past, and in future also it is predicted that economic successes depends upon the demands from the customers, the type of the market structure which is evolving with every passing year. So, this is very obvious that business activities and the society, they interact in a number of different ways. So, you understand what I mean to say is that as a society, as our culture promotes the usage of different articles, the type of lifestyle we indulge in, the type of transportation we use, and all other activities whichever we are doing, it is influenced by the business, the growing consumerism, but in turn this is also true that the type of the interactions which are going on, they also influence the societal structure. This is very much obvious, but another interesting feature which we have to understand as per today's session is that how all these economic activities, I should say, and the social pressures, how do they react with the natural environment. Now, this was something which was long back, it was already there, but it was not recognized. So, business, that is the economic activities, the society, that is the social structures, the society is the place where we live in, we interact among ourselves, and the natural environment, and which consists of your raw materials, your ecosystems, the different organisms which are present on the planet. So, they are also interacting with each other, and this type of interaction takes various forms. In simpler words, it is like you can understand in this way that no business is possible, whether it is a service industry, whether it is a manufacturing sector, it is not possible without taking the inputs from the natural ecosystems. If it is an iron and steel industry, it has to depend upon the minerals which the earth provides. If it is an agribusiness, it depends upon the agricultural output. So, this is not possible that any business activity is happening without inputs from the natural ecosystems, and it may be the products of the nature or it may be the services of the nature. So, we are dependent upon the rainfalls, not just the society depends, but also in a large shelf you can say the business activities are also dependent upon the natural processes, the ecosystem functioning, the energy flow which takes place. So, this is something which is well understood now, that nothing exists in isolation, everything is interconnected, interrelated. We as a society having relationships, living together, livelihood, urban environments, We depend on the business activities at one end, but also we depend upon the natural ecosystems, and therefore it is very interesting, it is very important for us today to understand that how corporate sector and environment relate to each other. Such type of interconnections were never studied before, were never given importance before, but today is the time where every business activity, every top company, every big corporate sector tries to find out the impact of its activities on the natural environment, and it is bound to do so because of so many pressures. What has been the traditional attitude? Now, once we begin our research, our interest on these activities, let us see how we have perceived it in the past. So, traditionally, business world has seen the natural ecosystems and the natural resources as something which is free, which is unlimited. Now, take the example of how we utilize the forest. The forests are considered to be the tremendous source of different kinds of raw materials, whether it is in the form of timber which you get, or it is in the form of some special leaves, some special you can say the different raw materials which you are getting, medicinal value also some of the, and even the land where the forest is there, that is also considered as something which is free, which is unlimited. The same is the case with how we perceive the water, the fresh water. It is always believed that it is free, it is always available, we can use it to the maximum extent possible. The generation of the waste which has occurred, has been occurring I should say since past, but always we have thought that the nature will take care of the waste products which have been generated by various activities. So, it was never a worry in that sense that environmental pollution is taking place or the environmental degradation is taking place because of business activity, because the pursuit of business was always profit maximization. It was always perceived that it is for the economic progress. With economic progress, the livelihoods are created, the life of the people becomes better, the living standards rise, and ultimately we enter into the developed world. That was the traditional mindset, and it led to the tragedy of the commons. Now, what is tragedy of the commons? There are certain common goods, the common land, the rivers, the mountains, the solar energy which we are getting from the sun. This has led to maximum deterioration of the environment, because all those which are common, public common lands, water which is flowing in the rivers, the mountains, even the biodiversity also comes into. And why we call it the tragedy? Because the more easily available a resource is, the more chances of it to be exploited beyond its capacity. And that is why, while today we face the problems of deforestation, overgrazing of the lands, pollution of our rivers, even the oceans have become polluted, over extraction of the minerals from the earth's crust. This is all happening because we have never laid any kind of an economic tag or economic price to the products which we are getting from the nature. So, that has led to that over exploitation of the commonly available free resources. And also there is a spillover effect. What is the spillover effect? Is that you know very well that the poor or who live in the, suppose in the coastal areas, there are people living. Now, because of the environmental degradation, the climate change is happening, the natural disasters are more frequent, and due to this the poor are more affected. Their lives, their livelihoods are at stake because of the extreme weather events taking place. So, this is categorically known as a spillover effect, because one activity, one event leads to the other event, and unfortunately that the other counterpart has no role in promoting, or it is not the cause of that problem occurring. For example, if there is an industrial area, suppose people who are living in near to that industrial area, or suppose there is a landfill site, people are living close to that landfill site. So, those who are responsible for dumping of the garbage, for generation of the waste products, have no idea actually that they are causing several health effects to the people who are living nearby, and who unfortunately have no role towards creating of that problem. So when we inhale the toxic gases which have been generated by the industrial plants, which have been released by various industrial setups, then it is a spillover effect. So loss of our health, loss of livelihoods, or long generation effects that we are having on our health, on our living, on our lifestyle, is the spillover effect of the externalities which have been occurring because of the mega corporate world or the big economies, the developed economies, I should say. So this was the traditional route which was already happening. Now, when it comes to putting a kind of an economic aspect to the natural capital, we should say, and when we say that the business world is responsible for not only the resources taking but also the pollution, then there are moral issues that who should pay the cost, because we are also we are also using those products. If it is a demand, if it is being manufactured, then we are using, then who should pay this cost, because they are bound to produce, they are bound to pursue that kind of an economic activity. So there is always a dilemma, there is always a kind of moral grounds. It is not clear that who should be held responsible for the environmental degradation which is happening because of business activities. Either the business people, the corporate world should be held responsible, or the people who are demanding such type of manufacture, such type of service, who should be held responsible for such a kind of the state of the environment. And because of this dilemma, we have never been able to reach a conclusion. However, now there are EPRs coming, there are take back schemes coming, there are different types of tools and mechanisms which are coming, which will help you to achieve something positive in this direction. So the answer to this lies in the green business practices, which is a win-win situation for the environment also and also for the business organization. Green business practices are those practices contrary to the original conventional practices, wherein a thought about the environment, protection of the natural resources, and less generation of waste, eco-friendly products, efficient use of energy, all these terms, somewhere or the other they are linked, they find a place in the green business practices depending upon the type of the organization, whether it is a manufacturing sector, whether it is a service sector, whether it is related to IT, whether it is building, construction, healthcare, hospitality, what kind of industry it is now mandatory on several grounds that the green business practices, that whatever the practices we are indulging in, that has to be environmental friendly and not environmentally distracting. So how do we define green business? Green business, eco-friendly business, sustainable business, they are common terms which are used in this area. So green business is an enterprise which has minimum negative impact. It is true that these type of businesses cannot operate without environmental interventions. It is much obvious, but it is an effort so as to reduce the environmental effect on the global level, on the local level also, because there are certain practices, for example, fishing activity, for example, grazing on the land, for example, manufacture of some local products. It has an impact on the local environment, which ultimately may result into the global change in the climate or environmental setting. But the green businesses ensure that they use the safe products, the raw material procurement is safe, it is not beyond the capacity. The customers, the clients, the investors, the stakeholders, everybody who is involved in that business is well informed of the different processes which are being taking place. And at every stage, the health of the people, the health of the ecosystems, and also the energy levels, means that the flow of the energy or the usage of the energy has always been kept in mind when such type of business practices are operating. and they provide, you can say, green alternatives, because the ultimate objective is to have a sustainable product, sustainable production, sustainable consumption. You must be aware of sustainable development goals, and please remember sustainable goal 12, it talks about sustainable production and sustainable consumption. So the production is sustainable only when it keeps the long term objectives, when it takes care of the resources, the natural environment, without which the continuity of that business is not possible. So it provides you alternatives. The question which comes to our mind is that why the firms are greening, what is the objective, why they are doing that, are they environmentally conscious? Because in most of the cases it is not. The business organizations have never been so conscious of their environmental, you can say, environmental impacts. At many cases it is just the greenwash, where they claim to be environmental friendly but they are not. But today most of the companies, they are now coming up with such type of products, such type of slogans, such type of activities where they perceive and where they declare that they are greening and they are promoting the green products, they are employing green practices in their organization. So the number one concern is because of the environmental value they accord to a particular product or the service. Now it has become very common that environmental issues are getting prominence. Climate change, biodiversity loss, waste generation, environmental pollution, health hazards caused because of the pollution, they are now talk of the town. Everybody is concerned about that, and therefore to remain sustainable in the long term, because the statistics and data which are coming today, the predictions that are coming for 2030 regarding the temperature increase, regarding the water scarcity, now all these issues, they are very common, and now the companies, they want to make their bit. So because of foresightedness, because of the environmental concerns which for coming tomorrow, they are adopting green practices. Another point is government regulations, because government has been strict on various accounts now. It is now laying down certain provisions, making rules, making amendments, putting on penalties, environmental impact assessment, environmental auditing, all these terms have become very strict nowadays. So it is compulsory, mandatory part that they have to recheck on their processes, on their products and all their activities which they have been doing. Then there are economic incentives and disincentives, because the green taxes, carbon taxes, carbon credits, these in the economic world, these terms are getting quite recognition. So because of promoting their own economic growth, it is essential that they adopt the green practices, because economically it is not feasible in the long run to adopt those practices which are polluting, which are not so efficient. Environmental crisis is no denial. We already know that the climate change is taking a toll on our health, on ecosystems. Water is scarce, land is scarce, soil is in bad health. So they have to adopt some green measures, and there is a pressure from the stakeholders. The investors are demanding, the customers are demanding, the retailers are demanding, the common public is demanding. There is a pressure, that is a social pressure, that the companies must come up with the green products. They should declare their green practices, whether it is a hotel, whether it is an airline, whether it is an industry, they have to declare, because it is the pressure from the stakeholders that green products and green practices must be given preferences. And it is interesting again, learners, that what they are greening. Is it possible to green the entire industry? Because as I was talking about the different sectors, there is industry related to suppose building and construction, then there may be hotel industry, airline I mentioned, banking I mentioned, healthcare, ICT, chemical industries, factories. So if you look at these varied examples, you will find that the greening actually may be different. What we have to green, Either organizing tree plantation activities will come under the greening measure, or if I take care of the waste products and if I recycle most of the waste products which are being generated, is it a greening measure which will be more convenient. So, that is always thought. So, in view of this, they are greening the products and the services, for example, using eco-friendly fuels, using electric vehicles, having some rainwater harvesting plants in their own setups, or using of the solar energy, switching out to cleaner forms of energy as I said, or conserving water, or protecting biodiversity. So, they are greening according to the firms in which they are more you can say more intervention is there. So, yes, employees are also being, because if you have a no car day, if you are organizing some celebrating green festivals, if you are educating, if you are holding training camps, because most of the service industries, especially banks, insurance, they do such activities. Whether it is a greenwash or not, but they do. So, they are greening their products, services, maybe employees by the way of HR, then operations, they may be using better equipments, they may be going digital, they may be going paperless. So, this comes under the operations part. So, there may be certain companies which have now or not using any sort of carry bags. So, there are certain companies, as I said, they may be giving more emphasis on the operations part in order to declare themselves as green or sustainable or eco-friendly. Facilities, their sites, the transportation. So, depending upon their own interest areas, depending upon their feasibility, the firms are greening. So, what measures, the simple measures, when we talk about energy efficiency, something which has been taken up by most of the organization because it saves electricity also, and it is a clear economic benefit for the companies to do so. So, getting energy from the renewables, investing in solar energy, wind energy, utilizing, as I said, rainwater harvesting in their plants. So, this is energy efficient measures which have been taken to promote green businesses. Complying with the different environment management practices, like going in for environmental auditing regularly, complying with the environmental regulations, submitting environment management plan every year, environmental monitoring, environmental impact assessment. So, this is one of the measures, and also through economic incentives and disincentives, like promoting economic activities in view of the environment protection. So, waste management system, as I said, it is also one of the important measures by which companies, they are trying to green themselves, they are trying to be more environment friendly. So, there are tools also. In view of this was something which has been taken long back, and therefore, there are certain tools, as I mentioned about, for example, CSR is a tool, corporate social responsibility. So, different environmental management practices which have been done come under the category of the CSR. Now, it is mandatory by the government that a certain amount of the income of a certain company must go into the CSR. So, that is essential. So, most of the companies, industries go in for environment protection measures as a part of the CSR program. It is one of the tool, like certification programs, corporate environmental reporting. Also, some companies also declare awards, annual awards, most eco-friendly company, most eco-friendly site, or for in the area of water conservation, in the area of green cover increase. So, different assessment methods have been formulated, different improvement methods to improve the environmental performance. So, the different tools are available. Some tools focus on the product part, some tools focus on the service part, also complying with the environmental regulations, because there have been so many laws governing the you can say related to the environment. For example, there are solid waste management rules, motor vehicles act rule, they also relate to the industries in some way or the other. So, because of the different features available today, like environmental auditing, environmental impact assessment. This is also very important. But there are challenges. As I said, nothing is easy. Because why is the challenge? Because there are not always the big companies, there are smaller players also, small and medium enterprises. For them, environmental sustainability is not at all valuable because it is not counted in their internal capital allocation decisions. They do not have any matrices, they do not have any measure to see that how far their activities are affecting the climate, or they are leading to water scarcity, or they are making the soil infertile. So, all these environmental factors are not fully integrated into long term business strategy. In view of this, there is always a challenge before the business organizations to see their impact on the environment. In view of this, green products are much in demand. They must know about the green products, learners. There are green businesses, there are green products which are safe, which do not cause any damage to the environment. They do not lead to generation any kind of toxic waste. They do not risk the survival and existence of biodiversity. But in view of this, as I said, green products are one thing, but there are voluntary business initiatives which have been taken in order to promote green businesses. Life cycle analysis is one approach wherein right from the procurement to the manufacture, transportation, packaging, different stages of the product are seen and calculated how much of the environmental impact does each stage have. This is known as life cycle analysis. Similarly, industrial ecology. It has believed that the raw material of one industry can also come from the waste products of the another industry. So, creating a kind of an ecological system where nothing is going in waste and promoting circular economy can help various business organizations because they also cut the cost on getting the raw materials. Then extended producer responsibility, because the producers responsibility does not simply end by selling that product, but also it is important to see, and they have to label. They should also take care that how that product will be disposed of, how it will be used, and carbon neutrality at every stage must be calculated and must be seen so that there are no carbon emissions and global warming is occurring on the account of the business activities. There are different codes of conduct which have been given, like series principles, which is a coalition of environmentally responsible economies. ISO 14000 are the set of standards, guidelines which are there for the products separately. In it comes the environmental labeling and all. Then there are for services like environmental performances. So, there are different codes which have been given to see that how environmental activities are being done. So, I end my presentation and session by saying that if you really think that the economy is more important than environment, just try holding your breath while you count your money. Thank you so much.